Hello and welcome to the program. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky was on a two-day official visit to Turkey last week. He held talks with his Turkish counterpart Rejep Erdogan in Ankara and took part in the Ukrainian-Turkish Business Forum in Istanbul. One of the important parts of Zelensky's visit was the signing of a business cooperation agreement with Turkey. He also invited Turkish investors to participate in a Donbas reconstruction forum scheduled to take place in Mariupol in late 2019. To talk more about the outcomes of this visit, we are joined in our studio today by Burak Pehlivan, chairman of the International Turkish-Ukrainian Business Association. Hello, and thank you for joining us.
Hello. Thank you very much, Alex.
First question, so Zelensky was on August 7 and 8. He was on his first official visit to Turkey. And as far as I know, you were there. So how would you assess Volodymyr Zelensky's visit in Ankara?
Of course, first of all, it was a historic visit for Turkey and for Ukraine maybe too, because after his landslide parliamentary election victory, he organized his first visit to Turkey. So I think Turkey is one of the priorities for the new presidential administration and for the new government of Ukraine. I can say the visit generally was very successful visit, and today visits, especially the business part, the economic part of the visit, during the visit he won the hearts of Turkish business people, not the minds and hearts of the Turkish people too.
Now, that's for the economic environment. So, could you specify what are the outcomes for the Ukrainian-Turkish business environment after this visit? As you said, he won the heart of them, but can you specify?
Before the visit, he had become very popular already in Turkey because, of course, he's from the show business, so it is an interesting figure. He became very fast. Successive politicians and got 73% of Ukrainian voters in the presidential elections, and addressed in English to potential foreign investors, and pledged that he will protect the interests of those business people. So before that visit, there is already a big interest to him and to Ukraine. And I can say, especially in the near future, we will see more investment and more investments by Turkish side in Ukraine in renewable energy, agriculture, infrastructure investments, and maybe light manufacturing.
Now, why is it important for Ukraine to have the Turkish investments? Because we saw Mr. Zelensky going to France for French investment. He went to Europe for Germany for German investment. Why is it important to have also Turkish investment there?
I think new administration, of course, wants to balance investments portfolio. The Europeans are very active in investing in Turkey too. I can say EU, 75% of foreign investments in Turkey belongs to EU. And altogether 28 countries bloc, it is one of the biggest, maybe the biggest investor in the world. But Turkey is the Black Sea neighbor of Ukraine. Turkish businessmen are more risk-oriented. They have huge experience in the region. And Turkey became, after 2014, I mean after Euromaidan revolution, one of the top 3 investors in Ukraine. So Turkey has already showed interest by actions to invest. And I think Mr. President wants to attract more investment from the Turkish side, especially in the infrastructure area, because Ukraine needs hugely and tremendously new investments. New presidential administration and presidents needs to show ordinary Ukrainian very fast some results, especially impacted in their daily lives. So in the infrastructure areas, he can show it. And among the biggest 225 construction companies in the world, there are 42 Turkish companies. Over the recent 17, 18 years, maybe 20 years, Turkey realized more than $150 billion infrastructure projects only through public-private partnership. So there is a huge experience, huge know-how, and capable construction companies and operation companies. So Mr. Zelensky wants to attract such kind of investments and know-how technology to the country, to Ukraine.
Now, Zelensky's decision to visit the country before Poland, its Western neighbors, and or even the United States, does this reflect on the awareness of the importance of this Turkish-Ukrainian relation?
Before, of course, President Zelensky came to power, we had really very good relations too. We are in the golden age of those relations. Political sides, it is a very important sign. Maybe both country citizens can travel each other without international passports, just ID cards. Turkish citizens have such an opportunity only for different countries, except Ukraine, and Ukraine citizens maybe plus Georgia. So it is really an important sign. Secondly, Mr. President knows Turkey. He likes spends sometimes his vacations in Turkey.
Yeah,
he knows the potential of Turkish business people, business companies, how can they deliver very fast and good results. So he turns to the south and seeks in political front and in economic front, and again furnished Turkish support to Ukraine in political and economic front. It's a good strategy, I think.
Now, as we said in the introduction, Mr. Zelensky also invited Turkish investors to participate in a Donbas reconstruction forum scheduled to take place in Mariupol. Mariupol is quite a symbolic city. It's one of the cities that resisted Russia's aggression in Donbas, and he's now part of this and near, let's say, 10 to 20 kilometers from the front line. We will go to the infrastructure, but first, why is it important for Ukraine to have this geostrategic partnership? Let's say, how can it protect Ukraine to have Turkish investors and investment against the Russian aggression? Isn't some sort of playing on investment, so some sort of like to protect itself?
I think Ukraine will protect all foreign investments, not just Turkish investments against problems, against different factors, because it is the pledge of Ukrainian government. And I think Ukraine has this capacity and this power to protect foreign investors. As you mentioned, Mariupol is a very strategic city and a symbolic city. I can say dini parks of Mariupol were mostly constructed by Turkish companies. The new roads are constructed by some Turkish companies. Again, in the factories, in the metallurgy factories especially, Turkish companies now supply new equipments, new machineries. So there is already very good relations between Turkey and Ukraine, including Mariupol. And I think there is a big presence by Turkish business people, entrepreneurs, at the Mariupol Business Forum in October. Now,
we talked about these relations. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Thursday reiterated that they wanted to increase bilateral trade volume with Turkey to 10 billion, which is a big amount of money. What should be done to reach this?
It is really a realistic figure. Turkish-Ukrainian bilateral trade was in 2008 $8 billion. Ukraine made its biggest surplus during its independence over the recent 28 years with the trade of Turkey. The amount reached $40 billion. So we can, I think, increase 25% a figure which we had already 11 years ago. So it is a very realistic number. But world has changed, Ukraine has changed, Turkey has changed. So we need some key factors, some key drivers to reach that goal in the close term. And I think the key factor, the key driver of that goal would be Turkish-Ukrainian Free Trade Agreement. That agreement was first time named in 1998, 21 years ago. And the official negotiations started in 2007, so past 12 years. I think we are now at the latest stage of that negotiations. Both presidents again underlined their support to signing that agreement in this year. In autumn, there will be again a visit of President Zelensky or the visit of Mr. Erdogan here to Ukraine, and they will head the High Strategic Council between two countries. I hope during that visit, during that council, that agreement will be signed.
How does the fact that after the beginning of the war in 2014, well, after the Euromaidan and the beginning of the war, Ukraine had to change its market and basically is trying not to have exchange and export with Russia anymore. How did this complete change of market and the need for a new market influence these business relations between Turkey? And how did Turkey benefit from this complete switch of market?
Of course, Ukraine not just now changing its market or orientation, and Ukraine tried to change the portfolio of exports, because Ukraine used to mainly export raw materials, and now Ukraine wants to transform its economy from a raw material exporter to the consumer goods exporter, and Ukraine wants, of course, to keep the value-added process in the country. I think to catch this goal, $10 billion US, Ukraine should export Turkey more consumer goods, and Turkey, Ukraine, of course, more consumer goods. The orientation of Ukraine is good, because now Ukraine not just only export their products EU and former Soviet Union countries, try to export Asia, Africa, Turkey and other countries, but to create a sustainable business model, economic model for foreign trade, this strategy of Ukraine is good to create free trade agreement, to sign free trade agreements with Canada, with EU already have been signed, and Israel will come to force soon, maybe in 60 days. So plus Turkey, Ukraine will create a real free trade area, and Ukraine, through that free trade area and supporting its exporters, can reach the goals which President Zelensky announced to be export champion in Europe.
Now, you used an interesting word earlier, which is the idea of a geostrategic, economic and geostrategic partnership. Yeah. One of the, let's say, hotspot around Crimea is the Black Sea. How and can we imagine that a free agreement between Ukraine and the need for this free agreement to happen and the export to happen, so the need for security for Ukrainian boats and Turkish boats can lead to some sort of alliance and protection for Ukraine from its Turkish counterpart against a potential, let's say, Azov crisis, as we saw when Russia is basically, holding control of
I think all neighbors of Ukraine, especially western side and southern side, they want to see a very prosperous and very strong Ukraine. Prosperous and strong Ukraine is a benefit for every counterparts, for EU and for Turkey. And as a strategy after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Turkey was the initiator of creating organization of Black Sea, organization of cooperation, economic cooperation of Black Sea regions. So Turkey's strategy always to make the Black Sea a sea of peace, not conflict. So it is the main strategy of Turkey over centuries, let's say. And if there is some conflicts in that region, first of all, it's bad for Turkey. And because of that, I think Turkey now is doing and has done as much as possible to create the stability and peace in that region. And as you mentioned, when the country's economy are more integrated, it creates a sustainable model of cohabitation. For example, my country, Turkey, we signed custom union agreement with EU in 1995. After that agreement, we got more than 100 billion euro investment from EU. Now Turkish exports, 48% goes to EU. Sometimes our politicians and European politicians have some problems. They make they criticize each other very harshly. But we cannot divorce, yes, because the economies are such integrated. So there is only just like rhetoric, and Turkish-EU commercial, economic, political relations go only further. So same, if we can create such a environment with Ukraine, a sustainable environment through the free trade agreement, through the without visa regime, through tourism, through cultural, economics, political contacts, I think it both parts will benefit from that agreements.
Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you in the studio today to talk about economic relations between Ukraine and Turkey.
It was my pleasure, Alex.
Chairman of the International Turkish-Ukrainian Business Association. Thank you for watching the program and stay tuned for the rest.